Hey everyone, welcome to my video. I am currently in the control center because I started screen recording and I wanted to talk about something under the settings app on the iPhone.
Wallpaper button.
All right, so we're going to go to the top.
Search field. Dictate.
And we're going to go to battery.
Double tap. Family. AirPlay. Wi-Fi. Bluetooth. Cellular. Personal hotspot. Battery button. Battery percentage. Switch button. On.
Okay.
Double tap to toggle setting.
Now, the reason I want to come here is to discuss something that seems to be an ongoing issue. One of them happens to be with iOS 18.1.1 and definitely a big problem with watchOS 11.1. And that is the battery charging and life cycles seem to have an issue when charging your devices. So just to give you kind of a background, when I traded in my iPhone 14 Pro Max, I had it for 18 months. And the maximum charge capacity of the battery relative to when it was brand new was 100% maximum charge capacity. My fiance, her phone, after 18 months, she was down to 80% maximum charge capacity relative to when it was brand new. Now, of course, she uses her phone a lot more on battery than I do. But still, with proper charging and discharging and proper care of the devices, she should not have been down to that low of a battery charge capacity. But one of the things that most people don't understand is that when you're utilizing iPhones and Apple Watches and you're utilizing the screen reader that comes with the Apple products called VoiceOver, that screen reader is using the processor or CPU resources, screen resources, and other software resources, which consumes a lot more battery power than someone that is using an iPhone or Apple Watch that does not require the use of the VoiceOver screen reader. This has been a problem since accessibility first came with VoiceOver to the iPhones and Apple Watches. It's always been a problem. Now, I've spoken with many, Apple representatives, and everybody always has a different story, a different situation. And some people didn't even know how to answer those issues at all. I've opened many tickets over the years in regard to, battery degradation and usage. And I think the iPhone that I had prior to the iPhone 14 Pro Max, when I turned it in, the charge capacity on that particular device was 94% maximum charge capacity. So I do use my phones when absolutely necessary on battery because I have to go to appointments or go shopping or whatever it might be. And so I know I'm going to be away from a power source. So what I will do is put the devices, both mine and my fiance's, I'll put them in low power mode. And that basically will help to try to preserve as much of the battery life as possible. And it won't eat up so much battery when using the screen reader. But the other thing that also takes up power is when you have a braille display connected to your devices. So for me, when I'm doing my work and I'm doing video editing and I'm doing other things, when I am here at home, I will try to the best of my ability to keep my devices plugged in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, unless I have to go somewhere. And then I will go ahead and put those devices, whether it be the Apple Watch or the iPhone, in low power mode. I will then also make sure that all of my settings reflect the settings that were on my previous phones. Turning off background app refresh, turning off the always on display, making sure that all of my notifications are turned off except for the most important ones, whether it be work ones, whether it be messages or phone or whatever it might be, but turning off all of the rest of them because I just don't need them consuming power. The other thing that I will also do is make sure that mail fetch is turned off and set only to manual, so that when I open up the mail application, that it's only fetching mail when I request it, because that also will use a tremendous amount of battery power. With the newest iPhones, starting from the iPhone 15, iPhone 15 Pro, and 15 Pro Max, all the way up through to the iPhone 16, iPhone 16 Pro, and iPhone 16 Pro Max, have the beta version of Apple Intelligence. Okay, so it's pretty much new. And you can enable it very easily. There's a process for doing so if you want to use that. But what I will tell you is that it uses a very large amount of power to operate Apple Intelligence. And hopefully Apple will address the high power consumption with Apple Intelligence over time. I certainly hope that they will also address the issues with regard to iOS 18.1.1 and watchOS 11.1 with regard to the batteries. So let me get now to a couple of areas so I can show you what's happened. So again, I've got battery percentage turned on.
Battery percentage. Switch button. On.
Okay.
Double tap to toggle setting. Low power mode. Switch button. Off.
I've got low
Double
power
tap to
mode
toggle
off
setting.
unless I am going somewhere.
Low power mode temporarily reduces background activity like downloads and mail fetch until you can fully charge your iPhone.
Okay. The next option here is battery health, which is very important.
Battery health. Button. Battery health. Normal.
Okay, it says my battery health is normal. That's great news. That's awesome news. And I would assume that it would say that. All right. So being that I got, these phones for myself and my fiance in October, I only used my iPhone on battery for 1/2 hour. So only a half hour of usage. And I will show you where I have a problem and where I got pretty upset, because these are brand new phones. They're expensive, $1,699, and all of a sudden you're going through life cycles way too fast. So I'll kind of explain that in a moment.
This iPhone battery is performing as expected. About battery and warranty. Link. Maximum capacity. 100%.
All right. Maximum capacity is still, even with some life cycles used that shouldn't have been, is at 100% maximum charge capacity. So that's relative to when it was brand new, which this phone is now roughly a month and a half old or so.
This is a measure of battery capacity relative to when it was new. Lower capacity may result in fewer hours of usage between charges.
So if your battery is really suffering, the lower the charge capacity is, the less hours of time that you will have to be able to use it between charges. So because I use it for work and also for internet marketing and streaming of videos, editing videos, recording videos, listening to music, reading books and things like this, audio books and so on, I want to try to keep my battery health as close to 100% as possible.
Cycle count, 2.
Okay, this is where I got upset. Cycle count is 2. So for using the iPhone for a half hour only on battery, I was basically down to about 93% of my initial charge up to 100%. Because I had used the phone to send some messages, to make some calls. And while I was in the waiting room for an appointment, I listened to a couple small videos and things like that. So by the time I got home, back to the house, the initial charge went from 100% down to 93%. So I plugged the phone back in and charged it back up to 100%. And other than a few small things, going shopping or getting in an Uber and going somewhere and things like this, I've always had my phones in low power mode. My phone and my fiance's phone, I've got that set up for low power mode. So it's really important, to try to conserve your battery as much as possible. But after a half hour of usage, indicating that I went through 2 complete life cycles, which basically means that I discharged my battery all the way down to 0%, which I never did, and then going and charging it back up to 100%. It's stating I've done that twice, and I actually have not. So it's very, very frustrating. So I don't know, what type of fix that Apple is going to have for these kinds of things. But also for people, again, that are using their phones and their Apple Watches, and you don't require the use of a screen reader or a Braille display, which utilizes much more power, then your batteries will last longer. For people that are, that have phones that are 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, and you're not using a screen reader or a Braille display, you'll be just fine, unless you have, pretty poor charging habits. Excuse me. But the Apple Intelligence and the screen reader together use a huge amount of power compared to someone who is using their phone under normal operating circumstances without a screen reader or Braille display. The only time that would make a difference for someone that can see is if that person is playing graphic intensive video games or doing a lot of streaming, and they're just using it, their devices with battery. So these are things to really think about. And I've watched a lot of videos over the years about, how to properly charge your phones, how to properly charge Apple Watches, and things of this nature. But when you go through and you make sure that, all of your stuff is set properly, you should be able to get very good life out of your phone for at least 18 months before you start noticing chemical aging and degradation. So if people have any questions about this, certainly you can contact me on Facebook Messenger, on Instagram, and on YouTube, and I will gladly walk you through any settings that could potentially help, especially if you're someone that has a visual impairment or you're totally blind and you need assistance going through your settings and trying to make sure that everything is set to the best possible options to conserve your battery life. I will be more than happy to help out in any way that I can. Another thing you can do is make sure that your screen brightness is turned down all the way. If you're totally blind, you don't need to worry about your screen brightness. So you can reduce that to 0%. You can also turn off automatic downloads so that you're not using background resources when you have to use your devices on battery. With the Apple Watch, you can turn off Smart Stack. Make sure that all your notifications are turned off as well so that you're not consuming a large amount of battery power for that stuff. You can turn off the option for always on display, and then make sure your screen curtain is turned on to reduce battery consumption. So I hope this helps a lot of people. And again, if you need any assistance at all, feel free to contact me and I will be glad to assist you any way that I can.
Battery, back button, battery, back button, 8:40 a.m. Screen recording.